What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Stat Shot Hockey Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Brown, joined by my co-host, Nick Vogel. Nick, how we doing today?
Pretty good, Spence. How are you going?
Doing pretty well. Been a good third week of the NHL season. A lot of exciting storylines, some controversial storylines as well. We've had some up and down betting days, but it's been a fun start to the season. So we'll jump right into it and kind of go through our regular cadence, standout players of the week, stock up, stock down. And then this week we're going to wrap up looking at some young players who could be on the move in the coming weeks, with some possible trades coming and maybe some teams that we think could be interested in some players who are on the block. So, Nick, why don't you kick us off with your number one star of the week?
Yeah, the first pick for me, maybe it's a little bit with recency bias, but Leon Draisaitl for the Edmonton Oilers. His last game, he had 6 assists, which I think was one shy for the league record in a game. And he's just a guy on fire right now. He's actually carrying a 59% Corsi for percentage, as well as a 60.3% Fenwick for percentage, and has 21 points in 11 games played. Saw a stat the other day that him and Connor McDavid had a combined 42 points in 11 games played, and the Oilers are still 5-6. I can't believe that. It just shows, how much they rely on those guys, and, they can't do it every night, and they need to get some depth.
Yeah, and I think mine goes right off that. I kind of took the layup as well because after Sunday night's massacre against Ottawa, you kind of just had to go with an Oiler. So I went with Connor McDavid as my first star, and I think the showcase game of the week was definitely their matchup with Toronto on Saturday night, and that end-to-end goal that he scored, as well as the overtime winner. I mean, this guy is just on a different level right now, and like you said, him and Draisaitl can carry a team only so far, and this is proving that no matter how elite your top two players are, it doesn't matter if you don't have the depth behind them. And it honestly makes it all the more impressive when you look at teams like Pittsburgh and Chicago in their heyday when they had two ultimate superstars, but the way that they were able to build teams around those guys.
Yeah, it's frustrating because obviously you'd like to see him get rewarded, probably the best player of our generation. But, he still finds a way to get his. I know the over-under for his shots last game was 3.5, and I believe he hit that in the first period alone.
Yeah, I mean, he is just a machine in the offensive zone. And like you said, the Corsi and Fenwick numbers are so high because the ice is just tilted out there. Teams can't get out of their defensive zone. And if they do, they have to be so wary of Draisaitl and McDavid coming the other way because if you're going to be skating backwards, you can't keep up with McDavid, and the vision of Draisaitl is always going to be a factor where even if you're in a great position, Draisaitl can make a pass to still expose your defense. So,
yeah, I just don't know what to do. I mean, he's playing 23 minutes a night, and, the team has such little depth that they still find a way to lose.
And they're playing all these one-goal games, and they're getting 3 to 4 points a night from two guys every single night. So it's been remarkable to watch these two play, but at the same time, pretty frustrating to watch Edmonton struggle. So, all right, who's your second guy of the week?
My second player of the week is Cale Makar. Obviously, if you didn't already know, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, but he scored probably the goal of the season, I would say. I think we linked it to our Twitter page, so check it out if you haven't seen it. But this guy's off to a fantastic start. 63% Corsi for percentage. It's one of the highest in the league if you look at players that have actually played a decent amount of games, like 5 to 10 games so far. But, the guy just finds a way to make an impact on the game each and every night. I know that he has 6 points in his last 4 games. His first goal of the season came last night. But, yeah, he averaging just under 3 shots per game, but with a shooting percentage as high as he has. I mean, right now he's shooting at 33%, which obviously is not sustainable. But, he's got an elite wrist shot and somebody that I know you predicted could win a Norris very soon, and it wouldn't be surprising to see him do that this year.
Yeah, I know watching that goal last night, like you said, it's a goal of the season candidate, but the more remarkable thing to me is I don't know that there's anyone better in the league right now at walking the line, especially on a power play point situation where, 3-4 years ago it was watching guys like Carlson, Burns, elite defensemen in the league. Cale Makar's a 22-year-old defenseman who has already gotten into this upper echelon of being not only an elite power play player from the point, but he's elite in his own zone as well.
Yeah, and I think that if you were to rank them, the guys that can walk the line the best, I think the second best player might be on the same team, and Sam Girard. The patented spin move that he has, the skating ability. I mean, he's basically Cale Makar light.
Yeah, and with a left shot as well, which makes it all the more valuable that when you play those two guys together, it's really hard to beat a team like the Avalanche, who are also so talented up front. I saw a stat yesterday on Money Puck that Cale Makar and now injured Avs defenseman Devon Taves are actually analytically the best D pairing in the league, which is not surprising given how incredible those two are on both ends of the ice. And Taves has gotten a lot more power play opportunities playing in Colorado and started to capitalize. So they've been really impressive to watch. Tough loss on Sunday night and a possible loss of Nathan McKinnon. We're still waiting to hear on that. So my second star of the week is actually going to be Andrew Kopp from the Winnipeg Jets. The Michigan product has 7 points in his last 4 games, 9 through his first 9 games this season. His career high was 28 points in 82 games 3 years ago. He is well on pace to eclipse that point. And I wonder if he's going to end up playing alongside Pierre-Luc Dubois, or his emergence is going to make their top 6 even that much stronger, considering the way they can mix around their lines with guys like Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, and Nikolai Ehlers.
Well, yeah, he's actually earned his way onto that top line. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because I know that Wheeler is a guy that's been consistently a top-line fixture, but if you have Pierre-Luc Dubois centering that line, I mean, at that point you have a 1A and a 1B. And you got to go with the hot hand right now. He seems to be on fire, so why stop?
Yeah, and it's been really intriguing to see where he's scoring his goals from, because he's made a couple goals with some beautiful moves, but he also is not afraid to get in front of the net and score some garbage goals. So good by Andrew Kopp to really be taking advantage of his opportunity this year. So who's your third star of the week here?
Third star of the week, I don't want to talk about it too much because we're going to be discussing him later, but it's Miles Wood. We try to make an effort to watch New Jersey just because the Jack Hughes factor and some of the other guys they have on that team. It's just an exciting team to watch. But 8 points through 9 games and just a pure effort player. The guy's missing a few chicklets, just a hockey guy through and through. I thought he stood out this entire week. So
yeah, and he really does catch your eye. And like you said, we've made a conscious effort to try and watch a little bit more New Jersey this year. And you said it to me on Sunday as we watched that game in the afternoon. I kept hearing you say, "There's Miles Wood again. There's Miles Wood again," and he just kept making himself a factor in the game. I know I think he had 2 goals on Sunday as well in their eventual win over Buffalo. So good for New Jersey and good for Miles Wood. They've become a tough team to play against this year. So my final star of the week, I'm actually going to go off the board here. Not an NHL player, but Cole Caulfield, the Montreal Canadiens draft pick, which, this has to make Canadiens fans even happier with the way that they've started the season, and then seeing their top prospect absolutely dominate the NCAA this year. He had 4 points on Saturday night, factored in on all 4 goals, scored his 13th and 14th goals of the season, also added 2 assists. He is now leading the NCAA in goals with 14 and tied for the lead with 28 points. So good for Cole Caulfield. I know he kind of had an okay freshman season. I don't think it was the breakout that everyone was expecting. And 2 years in a row, I think he's been pretty average at the World Juniors. Didn't really stand out, but especially on that Wisconsin power play this year, he looks like a transformed player, and I'm really happy for him because he looks a lot happier on the ice.
Yeah, hopefully he's someone that can continue to develop, because I think that it's someone that the Olympic team hopes can be a scorer down the road.
Yeah, for sure. And as a little side note, too, his teammate and good friend Trevor Zegras had a pretty nasty shootout goal in an AHL preseason game, so check our Twitter for that highlight as well. But we'll move on now to our stock up team of the week. Nick, who do you got?
I have the Florida Panthers. Obviously, new GM Bill Zito going from the Columbus Blue Jackets there has kind of shifted the way they play and, gone bargain bin shopping for guys like Carter Verhaeghe, Marcus Nunavara, and the like. And, it seems to be paying off. He signed Carter Verhaeghe. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but for a 2-year deal, $1 million AAV, currently 7 points in 6 games played. I don't think you can get much more value than that.
No, and I know when we were watching Columbus and Florida face off last week, that was one name you kept saying because he just kept popping up all over the ice. I know I think he scored in both games. And yeah, another really nice signing for Bill Zito, who has done a good job with some limited resources down there.
Yeah, it's nice. I feel like for the first time they actually have depth. Obviously, the line, or your top guys, Huberdeau, Barkov, and Hornquist are finding ways to get points. I think they each have 7 points right now, but guys like Duclair with 6 points, all apples, Verhaeghe, and then even Wenberg chipping in every so often. I think that they have a lot going for them right now, and especially with Owen Tippett hopefully making an impact soon.
Yeah, hopefully for your fantasy team. So we'll see about that. My stock-up team of the week is Carolina Hurricanes. The Canes went through a 10-day COVID break. They were the first team that had started the season to be hit with the virus, and they came back from that 10-day break, and in a span of 3 nights, they played the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Dallas Stars twice. So in those 3 nights, they ended up picking up 5 points, a win over Tampa, a win and a shootout loss against Dallas. And I just think this team kind of reminded everybody that they're going to be a really tough out in that Central Division. I think everybody looked to Tampa at the beginning of the year and said, there's the team that's going to win the division. But Carolina looked really good against them. Then Dallas came back after their COVID outbreak at the beginning of the season. They had a really hot start with those 2 wins over Nashville, and everybody said, okay, there's the second-place team in the division. But I don't think we can forget about Carolina. Their depth and their top line is so good. Martin Nakis is just a really sneaky good player. And the even more intriguing part is they had these 5 points all without Teuvo Teravainen.
And Ryan DeZingle seems to be back to his old self, too, which is going to help with depth scoring.
Something he did not provide in Columbus, that's for sure. So I know you had one other team you wanted to highlight here as well.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. It's the New Jersey Devils. This is a team that I would say has surpassed expectations at this point. They kind of have a young core with Hughes, Ty Smith, and Miles Wood, if you consider 25 years old young. But, this Ty Smith kid has looked really good. I know he scored his first NHL goal last week, if not the week before. But if you don't know about this guy, he was their 2018 first pick. I think he was 17th overall. Played for Canada the last 2 years at the World Juniors and played in Spokane in the Western Hockey League. But this guy has stepped in, immediately made an impact. He doesn't need to, play top-line minutes with Subban, Murray, and some of those other guys back there. But I think that Devils fans should be really excited with what they have there. And Hughes looks like the player they expected him when they drafted him. 8 points in 9 games. That's what you want that's what you want out of a first overall pick.
Yeah, Hughes has looked like a transformed player, but I totally agree about Ty Smith. I think there was one thing that this team really wanted to look for this year, and that was having a defenseman emerge. I know they went out and got Murray. They have guys like Subban who are a little bit more of the veteran realm, but I don't know that they had a young defenseman that they were really looking at to come through the system. And Ty Smith, I would say, is exceeding expectations. He's been really impressive. So good for New Jersey to improve their roster top to bottom. And, they're not going to be a tough out in that East Division despite how tough it is.
Yeah, if nobody has him in your league, look at picking him up on your fantasy roster. I just picked him up this week. Sort of an under-the-radar guy right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those defenseman points mean a lot. So he'll definitely be a good pickup. So we'll move into our stock down teams of the week. And I will not stray far from New Jersey. I'm going to go to the island. And the New York Islanders, 5-game losing streak. They are now off to a 3-4-2 start, so just 8 points in their first 9 games. They are actually third to last in the league in scoring chances for, as they've generated just 52 through their first 9 games. And that is only 5 more than the Dallas Stars, who have played 3 less games. And I know it's part of the Islanders' system to be very defensive and responsible and hit on the break with guys like Matthew Barzal, but Barzal is off to a pretty good start with 10 points in 9 games. Yeah, 10 points in 9 games, but nobody else on the team has more than 5 points, and I don't know if they can really rely on guys like Jordan Eberle and Anders Lee to step up in the system that they're playing in.
Yeah, when you really have one line that can score, it's not that hard to stop you. Obviously, it's a team that struggled to, or I don't know if struggled is the right word, but they play a very structured game. They're not running and gunning. They're not going to score 4 or 5 goals a game. They need 2 to 3 goals to win, but if you can't get those goals from Barzal, it's not going to be a probable thing to get guys like Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey to score those goals.
Kiefer Bellows. You can't rely on guys like that.
And JG Padgeau, I thought, could be one of those guys, and he's started all right. I think he has 4 points in 9 games, but you just need a lot more from the veterans on that team.
Yeah, and I think they have such a good young decor with guys like Ryan Pulock. Noah Dobson, I know, has had a pretty solid start to the season, but, I don't know that they have
Nicoletti,
an elite goaltender when Varlamov is out. I really do like Sorokin, but I'm not sure he's there yet based off what I've seen from him to start the season.
Yeah, it's hard for young goalies, so there is an adjustment period. I think the Blue Jackets saw that with Merce Lincoln's last year, so I don't know. I do think they'll figure it out. I think Trotz is a great coach, so I wouldn't panic yet if I was an Islanders fan. But like we said, it's a short season. You need to get back on the horse and get this thing going.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be interesting to see if Trotz decides to open it up a little bit at some point if they really can't get some wins. But we'll actually stay in the state of New York for your stock down team.
Yeah, my stock down team is the Buffalo Sabres, and obviously they've struggled out of the gate. I think they're a 500 team right now. I don't think they're a bad team. They're just not scoring nearly enough. I mean, you look at the top end firepower with Hall and Eichel. Obviously, they're getting their points when they need it, but it's a team that has struggled to score off high danger chances. Currently, they're dead last in the NHL with goals from high danger chances per 60 with .12. And obviously, that's something that I don't think is sustainable just with the shooters that you have on that team and the depth, honestly, at center. But I don't know. They're quite frustrating. I know that we've watched them a lot just through our bets and, watching games every night. But it seems like something's missing there still. I think they're still a few pieces away from being a true contender. But, yeah, they need to get it going. They I don't know. I feel like if they don't turn it around soon, Eichel might want to leave.
Yeah, and that was something I said on Sunday, and I know you didn't quickly shoot it down. I know you kind of let the question linger for a little bit, but I don't know. There are stretches in games where he almost looks disinterested just because they are that frustrating. And I saw something really interesting today. It was a name this player. There was no name next to their stat sheet as well as their cap hit, and it was a $9 million cap hit with 1 point this year. Can you guess who that is?
It's Jeff Skinner, because it's funny that you mentioned that. I saw another tweet going back to my standout player of Draisaitl. I think Draisaitl makes less and had more assists yesterday than Skinner had points all season.
I think he had more assists in the first period than Skinner has points this whole season. So, yeah, Skinner is one of those guys where it's truly baffling. He had the 40-goal season next to Eichel, gets the huge payday, and last year was bad. This year might be worse.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if he's not scoring, he doesn't provide anything else. And so that's kind of an albatross of a contract right now. If they could find a way to get that off the books, that would go a long way in terms of just shoring up the depth and maybe give them some more scoring options. Maybe bring in a guy like Peterka from the prospect systems.
It's really going to hurt, though, if they can't sign if Taylor Hall wants to come back and they can't sign him because Jeff Skinner is making $9 million.
I mean, the one bright spot in that, though, is if they are out of it, I would expect Buffalo to trade him at the deadline and get a significant amount of assets. I think that you obviously would get a first-round pick.
He looks good enough to get a first-round pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you retain on his salary, cut it in half. I don't know. I don't think that's a bad situation for Buffalo if they don't plan on signing him long-term.
No, and I do like what they have coming through, like you said, with Peterka.
Cousins.
Cousins has looked promising. I know he's kind of had his ups and downs of being a rookie center in the NHL, but, Dylan Cousins, Rasmus Dahlin, John Peterka, I think Ristolainen has looked really solid. They have pieces. It's just really not all there.
Jack Quinn.
Yeah, Jack Quinn as well, so he's up there. I think he plays for Niagara at the moment. So,
Ottawa. 67s?
Yep, 67s.
Sonk.
I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough read with Buffalo, but I think they're a team that's pretty easy to root for, especially when they have a guy who is going to be a number 1, number 2 center on Team USA in a few years with Jack Eichel.
Yeah. I don't know. You feel for Buffalo sports fans the passion they have in that city. You'd like to see them, figure it out. But I don't even know what to say about them. I don't want to say that I pull for them, but I definitely hope they do well.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a common thing with the city of Buffalo. The Bills started the trend, and now people feel for the Sabres. So, all right, well, we'll wrap up here with our look at a couple guys who could be on the move in the coming weeks. There have been a lot of controversial topics and trade requests, so we'll go through 5 or 6 guys and situations that could be on the move, and we'll start with Tony DeAngelo. What's your knee-jerk reaction on the whole situation in New York at the moment?
Well, obviously there's a lot of speculation about what did and what did not happen, but I think regardless, I think Tony DeAngelo is good enough to play in the National Hockey League. The skill set he has, the offense he can provide, he is an NHL defenseman, and in my opinion, a top 4 NHL defenseman, best suited for your second pair. But because of the recent news that has come out recently with the New York Rangers, I don't see him coming back into the league. I think it's a similar situation to what happened with the Arizona prospect that I'm blanking on the name right now. I think that in terms of your PR and your relationship with the community, with the national media, there's no way that you can bring him back to the NHL unless he goes and does some sort of public apology. And even then, I don't know if it's enough to change the view on him. I know that we've talked about the situation in Arizona where he got, was it fined or suspended for touching an official?
He had a suspension for an abuse of an official, and twice in the OHL he was suspended by the Sarnia Sting for abuse and harassment of a teammate and use of racial slurs.
Yeah, and I don't think it's someone that a front office will run around. And I don't know if it's true or not about his burner account on Twitter, but if you have some free time, you should look into that too. It's quite amusing.
Yeah, I'm not thinking DeAngelo has a future in the league either, and I think it really kind of said it all when he passed through waivers. That's a team's chance to claim a guy for free, and like you said, he is more than talented enough to play in a top 4 pairing, especially with a steady defensive guy next to him. I know his numbers last year were incredible, and it was next to Mark Stahl. So I think if he was given a stay-at-home guy, he would have a really great chance to succeed again in this league, but he had a really rough start. I know I read a few things today that he had some bad attitude problems after being scratched early in the season, so I think we've hit the end of the line with Tony DeAngelo. But we'll move on to another young defenseman, this time north of the border in Montreal. What do you got on Victor Mete?
Well, it's kind of interesting. We saw some, speculation on Twitter that his agent requested a change of scenery, saying that, it might be in the best interest of the team and the player to go separate ways. But the general manager of the Canadiens said that was actually false. And so now I don't know if that was a power move or if it's, just trying to stir something up with contracts. I don't know what to make of it, but if Victor Mete does want to leave, I do think there will be people that want him. And I have to wonder if it's due to the emergence of Romanov, because, Mete is also a left shot, I believe. And is that true? Left shot?
Yes,
Okay,
left shot.
Yeah. Obviously, Romanov has looked outstanding this year. It looks like he's a second-pair defenseman floor. But, Mete's a young guy, 22 years old, still has a long career ahead of him. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be in Montreal with the D-core they have locked up right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I know I was listening to the 31 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman earlier today, and he said that the Pittsburgh Penguins had inquired on Mete. I think the Penguins are going to be doing their due diligence on just about every defenseman with their current situation, but I think Mete's just in for a change of scenery, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does eventually find his way out, but Mark Bergevin, he can be stuck in his ways, and he'll wait until he gets the best deal possible. So we'll see. I know Mete did suit up Monday night against the Canucks, so maybe that was a showcase to show some other teams and try and drive up his value. So we'll move across Canada to the West Coast now. What do we got on Sam Bennett?
Well, besides being a draft disappointment, he's a passionate guy. It's something that I've always said I love in NHL players, guys that play with emotion, live and die just hockey, eat, breathe, sleep hockey. This is a guy that, he's not going to score a point per game. He has 129 points through 371 games in his career. Center that they drafted to be a number 1C. Obviously, it didn't work out, but he's still a solid middle six option. I think it's best suited in a 3C role on a deep team. But, I don't think it's someone that the Flames really want to give away right now. I know that you said the general manager of the Flames,
Brad Treliving.
Yeah, this was his first draft pick ever, and I think there's some sort of sentimental value there. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I do think there'll be a lot of teams around the league calling on him because you can never have too many centers. But I don't know. I think that he's in Calgary historically. I think is kind of a run and gun team. They find ways to score. So I don't know if he's going to have the same production on a different team, but he is somebody that would be a good third line checker.
Yeah, third line checking center is definitely his ideal role, and I think the tough thing for a guy like him is he's a little bit older than a lot of the other guys who are looking to get traded at the moment, and the tough thing is these deals are going to have to get done sooner than later, and it's tough with quarantine rules and things like that where maybe a team in Canada comes calling, but again, that becomes a tough situation for the Flames where are you going to trade away one of your top centers to a team that you're going to have to face 3 more times down the stretch? So, interesting situation there. And then we'll move back.
And keep in mind, he is an RFA this year.
Oh.
So when they trade him, he will need a new contract. I don't know if that helps his value or hurts it, but something to consider.
You would have to think it from a team trading for him, it would have to help that they have some type of retaining rights on him. So it's an interesting situation there. So the Pittsburgh Penguins parted ways with general manager Jim Rutherford this past week. And soon after Rutherford stepped away from his duties as general manager in Pittsburgh, it came out that he was apparently exploring the possibility of trading Chris Letang. And after that, he had a little bit of a spat with ownership, including Mario Lemieux, that they didn't want to see a franchise cornerstone like Letang go. 2 games later, Letang gets hurt against the Rangers, and I believe maybe headed to IR here soon. But either way, when he returns, any chance you see Letang getting moved now that Rutherford's out of town?
Now that Rutherford's gone, probably not, but I think it would be in the best interest of the Penguins to do so. Letang's kind of like Ryan Murray. When he's healthy, he's one of the best players on the ice. But how much is he actually healthy anymore? I know I wrote an article about this, but I do think that it might be time for Pittsburgh to start exploring trading some of those guys. Not Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, because I think those are jerseys that you expect to be retired.
And Letang still could be too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, just in terms of the return that you get for Crosby or Malkin isn't going to be worth the hole that you create by losing them, right? I think Letang is somebody that you can replace, not because he's a bad player, but because of the percentage of games he actually plays in. So I think it does make sense, going back to the Mete thing, to trade him and then try to get young guys and picks, because this is a team that I think has picked twice since 2014 in the first round. Obviously, it's hard to get blue chip prospects when you're not picking in the first round. So maybe they could move Letang and get some of those picks back, and recoup the prospect pool.
Yeah, for sure. I think once he's healthy, hopefully they can get him a few games to showcase. But I agree, it might be in their best interest to move on from Letang, because I just haven't been impressed with Pittsburgh so far this year. And like you said, there's little to no value from a standpoint of what you're going to get for Crosby or Malkin, or what you're going to get from your fan base afterward. So, interesting situation in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure where they're going to be going here with their GM search. I know Elliot Friedman had mentioned that guys like Joe Nieuwendyk, Chris Drury could be options. So, we'll see which route they go there.
And if they're still thinking that they can win, they need to make some moves now, because Malkin's UFA in 2 years. And once he's gone, I'm not sure. They're similar to the Oilers in the fact that they have two guys that kind of carry them. But if you lose Malkin, I don't know that Crosby can do it on his own.
Well, in 2 years, Crosby will be 36, I believe. So
35 or 36.
35 to 36 years old. So Crosby will be, getting up to, and he will still be an elite talent in the league. But
hopefully he still gets paid through the 24-25 NHL season, so they need him to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, we'll wrap up this one with our last trade candidate here. It's actually Vince Dunn in St. Louis. He's kind of been phased out of the lineup on the back end for the Blues. Similar to Mete, it's just a young defenseman who's kind of lost his way. I wouldn't equate either of these situations to something like Tony DeAngelo, where it's an attitude or something off the ice. It just guys that kind of fell out of favor with their coach, maybe had a couple of rough games, and they've kind of been phased out. But I think Vince Dunn definitely has a long future in the league, but it just won't be in St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't really get why he's not playing so much. He's on the third pair right now, but he's a guy that you look at his career totals, he's found ways to put up points. He's got 35 and 78 last year, 23 and 71, and 3 and 8 this year. For a middle pairing guy with upside, I don't think that's bad production by any means. But maybe he's someone that was hoping to be a top pair D, especially with Pietrangelo leaving and then Torrey Krug coming in, kind of solidified that for the next 7-8 years.
Yeah, 7-year deal there for Krug. So I wonder if that did kind of hamper Dunn's chances of stepping into a bigger role in the lineup. But I don't know. I think there's two routes you could go with this one. It could be they hold on to him and maybe he finds the upside that he has shown. But I really think another interesting avenue is, maybe it's not a contender that looks to trade for him, and it's a team like the Los Angeles Kings or the Detroit Red Wings, where they see that as recouping value on a guy whose value is kind of diminished, and he can step in and become a piece of their future core as they continue their rebuild. I know the Red Wings kind of did that last year with guys like Robbie Fabry as well.
I wonder if he wouldn't be a bad fit on the Wild, too. Obviously, it's in the same division, but, they're a team that looks like they're still a few years away. Suter's obviously going to be gone when they're competing again, but, yeah, I think that he's best suited for a young team that's, maybe 4 years away from being a true contender?
3 to 4, yeah. I think that's a fair assessment. So all the best to these guys as they move on and find the next spot in their career.
Well, before we wrap up here, is there any games that you're looking forward to this week? Anything you want to make a note of?
Yeah, the one game I'm going to be looking forward to this week is seeing the Colorado Avalanche and the St. Louis Blues face off on Saturday night. I know I wrote a piece this past week about the race to win the West Division between Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis. St. Louis analytically really kind of falls behind those two teams, but they've been pretty solid head-to-head. They split with the Avs in the first two games of the season and then actually took down Vegas in a shootout just before Vegas got hit with their COVID outbreak. So I'm really excited to see these two teams face off, and I think the Avs have been hitting their stride recently. Hopefully they're able to have Nathan McKinnon in the lineup as they travel to St. Louis, and maybe if they're lucky, they'll have Devin Taves back as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be an exciting game to watch. But for me, I'm going to have to go with the homer vote. And that is the Dallas Stars visiting the Columbus Blue Jackets, starting their series on Tuesday while also playing on Thursday. The reason I'm excited is because it will be Patrick Laine's first game in Columbus, playing against the Dallas Stars, a team that he has done well against in the past. For his career, he's actually scored 18 goals against the Dallas Stars. That's more than any other. That's the most goals he's scored against any team in the entire National Hockey League. He has actually scored a goal against every team in the league except the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hopefully that never happens and, he stays a Jacket forever and doesn't get any more goals in his own net, but we can ignore that. Anyway, yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting game. It'll be interesting to see how the line combos shake up, if he's going to play with Bjorkstrand and who's going to be at center, whether it be Texier or Domi.
Personally, I hope he plays with Alexander Texier. 6 shootout goal this past week. He's been buzzing around. So, an exciting week ahead. We got off to a hot start on Monday night, going 3-0. So, get ready to fade us the rest of the week. We'll be putting out picks, hopefully a couple more articles, and we'll be back next week with our weekly podcast. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you again soon.